Hello my friends, I finally decided to make this tutorial on how to join squares. I've been waiting for my nails to be done, but as it's not going to be happening anytime soon, I decided to do it. Just disregard my nails, okay? So now you have the body of the blanket is done and your squares are finished. So now we have to join them together. I use stitch markers. Well, I use jewelry findings for that. I use stitch markers to mark the first and the last chain stitch of the corners. You see, like right here. I put the stitch marker through the front loop because we will be working into the back loop, and I don't want it to be in the way, okay, when we will be using putting the hook into the stitch. So mark the front loop of the first and the last chain stitch of the corners on each side of the square. If you can work without stitch markers, it's fine too, but I think it's very handy to make sure that the squares don't shift one or two stitches like up or down, because sometimes it's tricky to see which is the first and second chain stitch here. Okay, so we will start by making a loop on your hook, a loop and the first chain stitch like this. Now we are ready to start joining these two squares together. I'm going to zoom a little bit. So insert the hook into the first chain stitch, into the back loop of the first chain on this right square, and the same on the left square. First, the back loop of the first chain stitch of this corner, yarn over and pull yarn through these three loops, okay, this loop and then these two. So here we started joining. Next, insert the hook into the back loop of the first single crochet on this side, back loop of the single crochet of the first single crochet on this side, yarn over and pull through these three loops, and continue like this all the way till the end. Make sure that you do not tighten it too much, because you don't want your seam to be squished like this. Don't make it too loose, because then you don't want it to be the ridge to be sticking out too much, okay? So it should be quite reasonably the tension should be reasonable here. But most important, do not tighten it too much, because the seam will be shortened, and then the whole blanket, well, I mean the whole border of the blanket will be how to say, wonky. Okay, so we continue joining this square till the end. Hook into the back loop, hook into the back loop, yarn over and pull it through. And here the last stitch, okay, it's marked here, the last the last chain stitch of this side, hook into the back loop, hook into the back loop of the last stitch of this side, and then we make one more chain stitch, and then we will make one more chain stitch and cut yarn. I forgot to take scissors, sorry. Okay, cut yarn, and here our squares are joined. We can take these markers off. And this marker off. This marker. So this way, please join all the squares for both sides. So you'll have like strips of 9 squares, I guess 9. I think it's 9 or more, or 18. I don't remember. I'm sorry. So you will have this strip of squares joined this way, And then you're going to join each strip to one of the sides of the blanket. Also, on the blanket, please mark the first and the last stitch, the first and the last chain stitch, so we know in which we're going to work into. Let me mark the first and last on this strip of squares, first and last. Okay, so it is very important to join the squares in this way and not in a way, you know, when you put them together right side to right side and just do a cutover stitch here, because we really need this seam to be done this way, because this and this stitch we will it will create one more stitch that will count as an extra stitch for the stitch count. I'm sorry, I'm just mumbling something. Okay, so let's start joining these two together. Grab my yarn. So the same, we're going to create a loop, a chain stitch on the hook, and start joining the strip of squares and the body of the blanket. Okay, so the first chain stitch, the back loop of the first chain stitch, the back loop of the first chain stitch on this side. Oops. Okay, then the back loop of the first single crochet, back loop of the first single crochet, and continue joining the seam this way. It's a little bit more complicated when you have a whole blanket on one side. I usually put it on my lap. I have to use the table here for the tutorial, but usually I work with these pieces on my lap. It's much easier. Lay it in front of you. Okay, so now here we're close to the... So the tricky part here, actually I should have marked the last and the first chain stitch on these sides as well, because here it's very easy to actually miss this stitch. Okay, please do not lose it. Okay, do not skip it. It's the last chain stitch on this side. So join. Oops, little tangle here. Okay, I'm sorry, yarn is splitting. Okay, so now please insert the hook into this stitch right here. Okay, right here. Okay, this is the extra stitch that we need to match the stitch count on the body of the blanket. Insert the hook right here and join like this. Now hide this yarn under and continue joining. Please do not skip the first chain stitch. The first chain stitch is this one, the first chain stitch, and continue joining the second square. Yes, you probably need to mark the first and last chain stitches of each square. So this one is okay. Make sure that this yarn is not standing in your way. Just put it into the back. Okay, continue joining. And make sure that your tension is still quite loose, okay, at least not tight. And normally you will hit the next seam here, On this sample, I only have 2 squares. Okay, last single crochet together, and the last chain stitch, joining together last 2 chain stitches, like this. Now make 1 more chain stitch and 1 more closing chain stitch and cut the yarn. And here we have these seams joined. Okay, so you see, by making the first loop on the hook and then we use it as a stitch, it will prevent this seam from squishing like this. Okay, so it will lay nicely and flat. Okay, and these stitches here will be used when you will be making the border stitches. You will be working into this stitch right here. Okay, so let me show you. After you've done connecting all the squares, you will do several more rounds of the border, right? So let me show you how you'll be working here. So let's imagine you are going to work your single crochets. So you do your single crochet, single crochet, single crochet. So here again, please do not skip the single crochet into the last chain stitch of this side. Okay, then single crochet goes into this stitch, into this one. Okay, not this here, it goes into this. Do you see it well? Yes, into this stitch. Okay, because if you go here, the line will just dip in this place. Okay, so we created this stitch on purpose to make the line like go straight and even. So into this chain stitch, and then if you want, you can just go over the end, work over the tail. And again, please do not skip the first chain stitch of this next square. And here you can crochet over the tail so you don't have to weave it afterwards. And you do the same at each seam of the square until you hit the edge. And here you remember it will be a regular corner increase with 2 chain stitches and single crochets into each chain, and continue working around. I will send you the pattern for the border. It's very easy. I think it's only 7 rounds around that you can do in one day. It took me 1 day to finish the whole blanket this way. Okay, so this is how your border will be finished. So you can see here the single crochet was made into the chain stitch of this seam. Okay, and the line is straight, there is no dip going in. If we would have worked into this stitch, it would be like this, squished. Okay, we don't want it to be squished, we want it to be straight. In the back, because we worked over the tail, it's quite clean here. Only here we have these tails from the bottom, you see, bottom of these squares that we will have to weave in. Okay, and this will be the border of the blanket. And I hope that this tutorial is fine, that you understand everything. I'm sorry for being a little bit, I'm quite nervous. I'm very nervous when I make tutorials. So please let me know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for making these sample blankets. Bye-bye.